There is a moment that almost everyone has experienced, but almost no one has stopped to examine. You walk into a space, a room, a kitchen, someone's apartment, and within seconds, before a single word has been spoken, before you have consciously processed anything, you feel something, a sense of ease, a quiet exhale, a feeling that can only be described as everything is okay here, or the opposite. You walk into a cluttered, disordered space, and something inside you tightens. Your shoulders rise slightly, your focus scatters. You feel a vague, sourceless discomfort that you cannot quite explain. What is happening in those moments? Why does the cleanliness of a room affect you at a level that feels almost physical? Why does it reach inside you and change something before your rational mind has even had a chance to form an opinion? Today, I want to explore the psychology of cleanliness, not the habit of cleaning, not the tips for maintaining a tidy home. I want to go to the root of something much more fundamental. Why cleanliness matters so deeply to us as human beings, what it reveals about who we are, and what our relationship with it says about the state of our inner world. Because cleanliness is not just about surfaces. It never was. Let us begin with something that will reframe everything that follows. Cleanliness is not a modern preference. It is not a cultural standard imposed by someone else's idea of how a home should look. It is an ancient biological imperative, one that is wired into the oldest parts of your brain. Evolutionary psychologists have established that human beings evolved a powerful disgust response over hundreds of thousands of years, specifically to protect us from contamination, disease, and environmental threats. The sight, the smell, the feel of filth does not just make us uncomfortable. It activates a genuine threat response in the nervous system, the same system that responds to physical danger. This is why certain types of mess do not just irritate you. They disturb you at a gut level. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, which is alert you to potential environmental danger and motivate you to remove it. But here is where it gets interesting. Because that disgust response does not operate only in the presence of physical contamination. Research published in the journal Psychological Science shows that the disgust system generalizes. It can be triggered not just by physical dirt, but by moral disorder, social chaos, and personal dishonesty. The same neural pathways that fire when you encounter something physically unclean can fire in response to something that feels psychologically unclean, which tells us something profound. When we clean, we are not just maintaining a surface. We are communicating something to our own nervous system about the state of our world. We are performing an act that, at a biological level, signals the threat has been removed. The environment is safe, order has been restored. And that signal is far more powerful than most people realize. Now I want to go deeper into what cleanliness actually does to the brain. Because the science here is remarkable, and it is not talked about nearly enough. In 2011, a research team at Princeton University demonstrated something that permanently changed how neuroscientists think about physical environments. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, they showed that visual clutter, the mere presence of multiple disordered objects in a person's visual field, directly overloads the visual cortex and reduces the brain's capacity to process information efficiently. In plain terms, a messy room is not just unpleasant, it is neurologically expensive. Every disordered object your eyes register, every pile, every item out of place, requires a small but real portion of your brain's processing capacity. Not consciously. You are not aware of it. But the cost accumulates, and a clean room has the opposite effect. When visual complexity is reduced, when surfaces are clear and objects are ordered, the visual cortex relaxes. Processing resources are freed. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus, decision-making, and complex thought, operates more efficiently. This is why people who maintain clean environments consistently report that they think more clearly, that ideas come more easily, that decisions feel less exhausting. They are not imagining this. Their brains are literally performing at a higher level because their environment is not silently consuming cognitive resources they could be using for something else. But I want to take you beyond the neuroscience, because there is a psychological dimension to cleanliness that operates at an even deeper level, and it is the one that I believe matters most. Your environment is a reflection, not in the abstract, metaphorical sense that people often use when they say things like that. I mean it in a very specific, observable, psychological sense. The state of your physical space is one of the most honest indicators of the state of your inner world. Think about the times in your life when your space was most disordered. Be honest. Were those periods also times of internal disorder, of overwhelm, confusion, low mood, or a sense of things being out of control? For most people, the answer is yes. Not always, but more often than coincidence would explain. Research published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people who described their homes as cluttered or unfinished reported significantly higher levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone, throughout the day, compared to people who described their homes as restful and ordered. Not elevated in the mornings. Not elevated after stressful events. Elevated all day. Simply from existing in a disordered space. Your home is not a passive backdrop to your life. It is an active participant in your psychological state. It is sending your nervous system a continuous stream of information about whether the world is under control or not, and your nervous system is listening. This brings me to what I believe is the most important psychological function that cleanliness serves. And it is one that almost no one consciously recognizes, even though they feel it every single day. Cleanliness is a form of self-communication. Every time you clean, you are not just cleaning a surface. You are making a statement to yourself. You are saying, I live here. This is what I deserve. This is the standard I hold for my own environment. You are demonstrating to yourself through action that you are someone who cares for their space, their home, their life. And here's the thing about self-communication. It compounds. Every act of care toward your environment is a small but genuine deposit into your sense of self-worth. Every time you wipe down a counter that did not need to be wiped, but you did it anyway, you are reinforcing an internal narrative that says, I am someone who maintains things. I do not let things deteriorate. I take care of what is mine. And the reverse is equally true, which is the part that is harder to hear. Every time you allow your space to deteriorate beyond the point you would genuinely choose if you had the energy, you send yourself a different message. Not deliberately, not consciously, but the message is received nonetheless. And over time, it shapes how you feel about yourself in ways that are subtle but cumulative. Now, I want to address something honestly because it is important. Because there is a version of cleanliness that has nothing to do with self-respect or clarity or biological safety. There is a version that is driven by something darker, by anxiety, by a need for control that has become compulsive, by a fear of judgment so powerful that the home must be perfect before anyone is allowed inside. Clinical research on obsessive-compulsive disorder and anxiety-driven cleaning shows a very different psychological profile from the healthy relationship with cleanliness I have been describing. Where healthy cleanliness creates a sense of calm, compulsive cleanliness often does not. The person cleans, feels relief for a moment, and then the anxiety returns, so they clean again. The cleaning is not a solution to the discomfort. It is a temporary suppression of it. The key distinction, and this is worth sitting with, is whether cleaning leaves you feeling peaceful or simply less anxious. Peace is the presence of something. Relief is only the temporary absence of something else. If your relationship with cleanliness is one of relief rather than peace, that is worth examining. Not as a judgment, as an invitation to understand what the cleaning is actually trying to manage. For most people, however, the relationship with cleanliness is not compulsive. It is something simpler and more benign. It is a habit that either was built or was not. And that is what I want to speak to now. Because one of the most persistent myths about people who maintain clean environments is that they simply enjoy cleaning more, that they have a higher tolerance for it, or a natural inclination toward it, or some personality trait that makes tidiness feel effortless, while the rest of us find it unpleasant. This is not accurate. When you ask people who consistently maintain clean homes whether they enjoy cleaning, the majority tell you honestly that they do not. They do not enjoy it in the sense of finding it pleasurable as an activity. What they have is something different. They have a relationship with the outcome that is strong enough to motivate the behavior regardless of how the behavior itself feels in the moment. They have learned through direct experience that the version of themselves that exists inside a clean, ordered space is measurably better than the version of themselves that exists inside a disordered one. More focused, more calm, more capable, more at peace. And that knowledge accumulated through repeated experience becomes a form of intrinsic motivation that discipline alone could never sustain. This is why willpower is the wrong frame for understanding cleanliness. Willpower is a limited resource. It depletes. It fails under stress. It is unreliable at exactly the moments when you need it most. People who maintain clean environments are not exercising more willpower. They are operating from a clear and deeply felt understanding of what their environment does to their mind. They clean not because they are forcing themselves to. They clean because they have experienced the alternative and made a choice. That is a completely different psychological process, and it is one that anyone can develop. Here is what the research on behavioral change tells us about how that development happens. In 2009, a study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that new behaviors take an average of 66 days to become automatic, to shift from conscious, effortful action to something the brain simply does. But the more important finding was this: missing a day or two did not significantly disrupt the formation of the habit. What mattered was the overall pattern of repetition over time, the direction, not the perfection, which means the path toward a different relationship with your environment is not as steep as it might feel from where you are standing right now. It does not require a personality transplant. It does not require an extraordinary act of discipline. It requires a sustained, imperfect, directional commitment to doing something small enough that it does not feel like effort, consistently enough that your brain eventually stops registering it as a choice. Wipe the counter right after cooking. Not because the counter needs it urgently, because you are practicing a conversation with yourself, because you are building the evidence that you are someone who maintains things, put things back immediately after using them. Not because leaving them out is catastrophic, because every time you do it, you are reinforcing a self-concept. You are adding another small brick to the structure of who you are becoming. I want to close with something that I believe most people have never consciously considered, even though it is operating on them every single day. Your home is the environment where you are most yourself, not the version of yourself that performs for others or manages the demands of the outside world or meets expectations that were set by someone else. Your home is where the layers come off, where you are simply you. And if the environment where you are most yourself is one that you would not choose to be in if you had the energy to change it, that is a significant piece of information, not a reason for shame. Not evidence that something is irreparably wrong, but an honest signal from your own life that there is a gap between the standards you have for yourself and the reality you are currently living in. Cleanliness, at its deepest level, is not about spotless surfaces. It is not about what guests think when they walk through your door. It is about what you think when you walk through your own door. It is about the daily, accumulated message you are sending yourself about who you are and what you deserve. A clean environment tells your nervous system it is safe. It tells your brain it can focus. It tells your sense of self that you are someone who takes care of things. Someone who does not let what matters deteriorate. Someone whose inner standards and outer reality are aligned. That alignment, quiet and unglamorous as it is one of the most reliable foundations for a functioning, focused, and genuinely peaceful life. I would love to know, what is your relationship with the cleanliness of your space? Does it feel like a burden, a relief, or something you have never really examined before? Leave it in the comments, because the conversation that happens there is always more interesting than the video that started it. Thank you for watching. If this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button now. I will see you on the next one.